That's Dodger, and there's the real Dodger. We're going to leave him in here for right now because I'm going to take you guys for a little hike with Mr. Echo. He's waiting outside. And I want to talk about Quartzsite today, so we'll see if we can stay on topic while we go for a little hike. We're heading to Quartzsite, and I'm pretty excited about that. We've been going through a lot of cold weather, as you guys have seen. Here, it's pretty nice, but it is still a little bit cold. But it's not getting down to freezing at night, so it's been kind of nice. We're in Nevada, so let's go take a hike. Let's grab Mr. Echo, and we'll see what we can cover about Quartzsite because I'm excited to go. Echo's excited to go for a little hike. First, I'll show you what I got going on here at camp. I always like to lock the trailer up when I'm going away. There we go, it's a little sticky. So you can see I keep my camp pretty simple, as you guys know. I got the water bowl out for the dogs. Got a little table out, my camp chair. The camp chair is pretty awesome. And you know, I was looking at Anna's Adventures channel today, and she was showing a chair that she has, which is really cool. It's packable, it's really small. So I could probably tie it to the backpack, that kind of thing. But I don't think it would work out here in a situation like this just because it's so lightweight that the wind would tend to kind of pick it up and throw it away. So I think something a little heavier works a little better, like as a main camp chair. You know, something you can leave outside. I can leave this out overnight or when I go away from camp. I don't have to worry about it blowing away in the wind, basically, is what I'm saying. And here I got my solar panel set up, so I'm charging up my battery, and basically I just use this for, well, pretty much for everything. I charge everything with it. It'll go up to about 62 watts in, and right now it's at 72% fully charged. So I got it down to about 50% last night. I was just running a DVD player and the PlayStation for a little bit with the AC jacks here. This thing is really awesome. So we'll leave this out, and this thing will charge up in the sun while Mr. and Echo and I head out. We're just hiking down here in the wash. We're going to head out through here, and we'll just kind of be out in open desert, which is really fun for me. If you're new to the Got Out channel, just so you know, the dogs and I, we travel full time. We got our trailer, and Mr. Echo and Dodger. And pretty much I only go into town every couple weeks if I can manage. So we carry all our supplies with us, all of our food and about 50 gallons of water. And we stay mostly on public land, sometimes campgrounds. And you'll see sometimes in our videos we'll be at rest areas. That's pretty rare. But for the most part, it's free camping. Now, Quartzsite is a little different. During the main season, which is winter, which is actually right now, there's a permit fee if you want to stay longer than 2 weeks. And there's permit areas where you're allowed to stay longer, but you have to have that permit. In the non-permit areas, you can stay for 2 weeks, and that's free because that's also public land. So it might seem a little complicated, but it's pretty casual there, you know, but you do need to have a permit if you want to stay there a longer time. I think people do occasionally kind of stay in the 2-week area for 2 weeks, and then they move on to another 2-week area. And I think technically you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to move a certain number of miles away. And in Quartzsite, most of the camping areas are within a few miles of each other. So if you want to stay there longer, and you'd be surprised, a lot of people do. There's so many people out there, like right now, and in December, January, February, March, and we've been there all the way through the end of the permit season, which is the middle of April. And that season starts in September, the middle of September, all the way through April, the middle of April. So you get 7 months for that $180 fee. And what that includes is you can camp anywhere you want in these permit areas. And there's several of them. There's a bunch right there in Quartzsite. There's also a bunch where you can use that same permit down kind of near Yuma. And I think there's a couple in California. So you have some choices. Now there's no plugins, so pretty much everybody has some sort of a solar panel setup. That's kind of one of the prerequisites for your rig if you want to survive there. People do have generators, but from what I've seen, people don't run their generators too often. If we go through like a period of cloudy days, then people might start bringing out their generators. I'll run my generator every once in a while. But for the most part, you're going to be using solar power. That's your source of electricity. And so you know, we're not in Quartzsite right now. We're getting very close. We're in Nevada. And this is BLM land. This is really similar to what it's going to be like when we're in Quartzsite. It's very barren and flat. Quartzsite is a lot more flat than this. There are some areas with hills and mountains, like Dome Rock is one of those places, and that's a 2-week area. It's very quiet out here. There is some wind, so that's why I got the microphone on. That's kind of one of the upgrades brought to you by our awesome subscribers. This was from Sarah Jane, sent us this microphone. You know, having a YouTube channel is really cool. What I like to do on this channel is kind of share my ideas and philosophies with about nomadic life. And I'm not an expert, but you know, I'm kind of an expert at what I do and how I do things. I've got a pretty good system down. You know, but there's a lot of different ways to live. Out here, I don't know if you could see earlier, we passed by a bus. Someone had a school bus out here. People live in school buses. People live in vans. There's somebody camped out here right now that has a huge tent with like a wood stove built into the side of it. So they must be camping out here for a while. There's a lot of these little holes out here that are very fresh with little claw marks at the entrance. So they're probably little pack rats, mice, that kind of thing. But one part of our system lately has been to return to Quartzsite. Since we usually move every week or two, generally, sometimes we'll be in a spot for a few days, but usually we'll be there for a week or two. Because I'm pretty good at finding pretty awesome spots. But having 2 dogs, and of course then there's the issue of gas money, it can kind of be nice to get to a place like Quartzsite where you can just kind of chill out and relax for a little while. Because while they don't have electricity there, they do offer a few other services that are really handy for nomads, and so that's part of your permit fee. I'm going to find a spot up here in this hill where we'll be kind of out of the wind and where I can stop breathing so heavily. And I'll tell you about some of the advantages of staying at Quartzsite. You thirsty? Let's go get some water. Good boy. Get you some water. Come on. Echo. I was hiking around here a little bit closer to our camp earlier today, and I found a stake in the ground with a little cup at the top of it, and there's like a little note inside. And so you wonder, oh, is that a geocache? But you open it up and it's a mining claim. Someone has literally staked their claim. And I don't know if it has to do with this, but it said Gypsum Mining Company. I think this is gypsum. I'm not sure. But they were from Texas. It said it's from Texas. And there is mining that happens right over here. People camp over there. I like to stay away from that when I camp out here. But it looks like a good surface to sit on because there's no places for scorpions or tarantulas or snakes. It's not really snake season right now, but there are insects out here. Rodents. Echo. Come here. Get that water. So when we go to Quartzsite, it's a good chance to relax because things like water, sewer dump, because you got to dump your tanks. You know, you got black water and gray water. We have about 24 gallons of each maximum capacity in the trailer. Those are things you have to do. You know, besides like going to get groceries and gas and electricity. The thing about Quartzsite is you get a lot of sunlight. That time of the year, the sun is a little bit lower in the sky, so you're not getting quite as much sun as you would during the summer season because the sun will be directly above. So some people in Quartzsite, they'll do the thing where they tilt the panels up. What I do and what I'm thinking about doing is just adding a couple more panels because yeah, they're not quite as efficient, you know, as for the amount of sun that it takes in because they're mounted flat on the roof. But that's easier than having to get up there and adjust them, you know, as the sun moves around the sky or whatever, or having to position your rig in such a way that you can tilt them in the right direction. When they're flat, they're just up there permanent and you never have to do any adjustments on them. But you might need a couple more panels than normal. So if you're camped north Then you're going to deal with rain and clouds. And you might also have like trees, like big trees, and that's going to block the sun. So being in an area that's super sunny and it's super nice, it's usually 60 to 70 degrees in the daytime, then you're not going to be needing to run your heater as much, and you get a lot of solar power, which is super nice. And the water there is included with the permit. And some people say they don't drink the water, they'll go into town and buy water. There's a lot of places in town that service RVs. They have services, there's dump stations. You can buy propane and water really easily in the town of Quartzsite. It's all set up for RVs. There's a place called the RV Pit Stop, which is what I use if I need propane or water for whatever reason. If I'm driving through town and I don't have a permit, but I want to get some water or dump my tanks, then you go to the RV Pit Stop. It's a good price. The propane is a decent price. And you just pull right in and they tell you what the price is, and then you kind of get in these different sections and you can load up on whatever you need. And it works kind of that way at the LTVA area, which is the permit area of Quartzsite. The thing about the LTVA areas, as far as like the dump and the water, is there's not very many stations. I think La Posa South might be the only place you can get water in the LTVA areas. So if you're staying in different areas, you got to drive from wherever you are to the La Posa South area. So you might have to drive, 4 or 5 miles to get your water and to do your dump. And I could be wrong on that. There might be water stations at some of the other ones, but I haven't seen them yet. I've driven through a couple, but I haven't seen any water stations. They do all have a dumpster for garbage, so you can get rid of your garbage really easily too. That's another benefit, is that you get dumpster service. So usually when you're going to pick up water, you bring your garbage, you throw your garbage in the dumpster, you get your water, and then you head back to camp. So that allows you to not have to move your rig regularly, except when your tanks get full. Then you're going to have to move your rig and go to the dump. And the only dump station is La Posa South, and there's only 2 dump stations, which I don't understand how that many people, because there's thousands of people camped out there. It's crazy. There's only 2 dump stations. And so there'll tend to be a line. And sometimes the line, like I've had to wait an hour, a little bit more than an hour sometimes. But if you time it right, you can go at the right time of day, and you might only have to wait for 3 or 4 people in front of you. But generally, there's a constant flow of traffic through the dump station. So there will be some waiting. And the thing is, the dump station, it's not really in great condition. They have these hoses for kind of washing the area, and they leak, they kind of drip on you. I did a video about it last year. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video if you want to check out that, my review of the dump station. It works, you just like any other dump station, it collects whatever you want to dump in there, all your gray water and your black water. But now they're talking about raising the price from $180 for that 7-month pass to something like $600 for 7 months. And I don't know how they can justify that, because they did install some new water stations and dump stations, but they didn't work last year. I don't think they're working this year. And I understand that costs money, but they want to more than triple the amount of the permit fee for people. And that just doesn't make sense to me, because the dump conditions and the limited water stations, and it doesn't seem to be upkept very well. They do work. For me, the water tastes really good. I do have a standard RV filter that I filter all the water through, and I just drink that. Once it's filtered through my filter, I drink it, and it's fine. It tastes fine to me. Some people say it's salty, but I don't have any problems with the water. I like the water. And it doesn't make me sick, which I guess is the most important thing. So how are they going to justify raising it from $180 to $600? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. They did do a little maintenance on the road. Like there's some pavement there that they added pavement. So, that costs money. But there's so many people out there that are not going to want to pay that $600, because like I said, you can just move every 2 weeks to different areas. There's certain rules. Sometimes you have to go 10 miles or 25 miles before you're allowed to camp again for 2 weeks. So there are rules that you do need to follow if you want to do the completely free camping. The sun is getting a little intense. I could put my hat on. You know, all the gear that you see me and the dogs using, I've been creating a really comprehensive list to all those products. Like, you can find this hat on that list, so you can check it out on Amazon. And if you buy anything on Amazon through one of our links, then that helps us out a little bit, and that's something you can do to help support the channel. It's really awesome. But really, if you it helps you do research, you know, for the products. Like, you all know about this tracker that I got for Echo, and I love this thing. It's so freaking cool. But that's on the list too. So if you go in the description down below, you can see a link to our Amazon store. The thing about Quartzsite is some people say that it's boring. I've heard a lot of people say that. Now, if you go down there, there's so many people there that I don't think the people that are there think it's boring. I mean, there's so many people there. It's just crazy. And so some people say that it's boring and it's packed full of people. There's too many people around. And in a way, you know, there are, like, a place like this, and I'll show you like how densely populated it is in this area, and it's not very, very dense. It's definitely more dense in Quartzsite. Depending on where you go, the different areas, and you should drive around and go out to as far as it'll go, and there'll be a sign there that says, okay, no more camping beyond this point. But in some of the areas, you can drive, you know, a mile or two back before you hit that sign that says no camping. And in certain areas, it's a lot more sparsely populated. And that's kind of what I like to do, is I like to find the areas where I'm not right next to people. Closer to the entrances, you'll see people like very close. I mean, I'm talking like, you know, 30, 40, 50 feet apart. So it's not like an RV park, you know. It's way better than an RV park where you're like 20 feet from your neighbor. And then it's next 20 feet is another person, next 20 feet is another person. So Quartzsite allows you a lot more room, and people will kind of put like little rock barricades around their camp. They're like, hey, this is our camp. Don't come in here. So there's a lot of things that people will do. They'll put up like little decorations. I tend not to do that because that stuff will just blow away in the wind. So you got to be careful of the wind. And as far as it being boring, well, for me and my dogs, if we're camped near a wash, then we can hike all day. I mean, you can hike for miles in certain areas. You can hike for miles. It's kind of just plain desert, but there's a lot of washes. There's a lot of Palo Verde trees, all kinds of shade that you'll be able to find out there. A lot of saguaro cactus, barrel cactus, things like that, prickly pears. So for me and my dogs, because we like to hike, it doesn't get boring, and it does get relaxing. Like, you can just sit in your camp all day. You can have campfires. There are certain areas that will have sort of regular parties, like on the weekends, and a lot of times everybody's invited. There'll be like a big campfire, somebody playing some music, that kind of thing. There's also areas where certain people that like to do certain things, and you can look into that for yourself to find out what those are, but they'll kind of camp together in these like big conglomerate groups of people that are all kind of into the same activities. People out there with four-wheelers, a lot of side-by-sides, little dune buggy things. So that kind of brings me to the noise issue, because you would think if there's that many people in this one, you know, kind of area, whichever LTVA area you're camped at, that it's going to be really noisy. Like, there's going to be a lot of people making noise. There are a few people like having little parties and things like that, but it's generally really quiet. And for the most part, a couple hours after the sun goes down, like around 10 o'clock, it's going to be like dead silent. Like I said, there might be a chance that the person you camp to runs their generator at an annoying time for you. And then what that means is you're going to have to find a new camp. So you're going to have to just pick up stakes the next day and go find a new camp if it bothers you. And I don't like that stuff. I don't like generators. I don't like barking dogs or people having parties right next to me all the time. But I have not run into that problem at Quartzsite yet. There have been a couple times where people will let their dogs run off the leash. Like Mr. Echo, I'll always have him tied up in camp. When we go out hiking in the middle of the desert, then I might let him off the leash, but there's nobody out there. There's no people out there. But in the camping areas, he'll always be tied up. But we have run into a couple situations where people have let their dogs kind of just wander into our camp. And that can be kind of sketchy, but it turned out the dogs were friendly enough. So it wasn't that big of a deal. I've seen cats running around out there. And then you'll hear stories. I feel like each year I'm there, I hear stories of someone looking for a lost dog or a lost cat. So you do have to be careful of your dogs and cats out there because there are coyotes out there and rattlesnakes. In the winter season, I have not seen a rattlesnake until I think it was March or April that I did see one. It was a big one. So I want to kind of give you a view of where we are here. And I just want to repeat, we're not in Quartzsite right now. This is not Quartzsite. We're in Nevada. But you can see how the rigs out here are pretty well spaced. And in Quartzsite, you're going to see way more rigs than that. Like in this one shot, you'd probably see, shoot, I mean, you might see 300 or 400 rigs all the way out there, you know. It's a good dog. You want water? No? If you're a new nomad, I would definitely recommend going to Quartzsite. I was a nomad for at least a year before I ended up in Quartzsite when it was the busy season. And I had this weird feeling because when you're a nomad, you kind of feel alone, like you're the only person out there doing this. I mean, I was brand new. I was like, oh, I can stay at all these places, and I'm finding all these places. I'm using the iOverlander app. I'm learning about my gear and what kind of supplies I need. And then when I got to Quartzsite, it's like, holy cow, everybody out here is doing the same thing. And so many people out there have been doing it for years and years and years. Some people are just snowbirds and they come out for 6 months and then they go back home to wherever they live. But a lot of the people out there are full-time nomads and with all different kinds of rigs. You see a lot of vans and trailers. You'll see huge fifth wheels, like really, really nice fancy rigs. You'll see homemade rigs, a lot of buses, school buses that people have converted into a nomadic vehicle. All kinds of 4x4s. You'll see truck campers. One thing you don't see a lot of is tents because there's certain rules out there and you're going to have to look into all the rules, and they're pretty basic. But if you don't have onboard wastewater tanks, then you are required to stay within a certain, like camp within a certain distance of these kind of pit toilets, like outhouses that they have, which are generally, they're pretty clean. They're not nasty or anything, because they don't want people burying their waste in the ground or dumping their wastewater. And there's a separate area where you can dump your wastewater and blue boys. So if you have a blue boy, there's a separate area where you can dump. A blue boy is like one of those 20, 30 gallon tanks that you pull behind your truck. And so you put all your wastewater in there and then you can dump it at a separate dump area, which is kind of convenient. A lot of people do that. They bring those blue boys. So a lot of Quartzsite thoughts, huh? I'm excited about going. And the thing is, like, for someone who's been there a few times, the things that I'm talking about today are just second nature. Like, you just get used to it. It's pretty easy living. There's a whole other aspect of going into town, you know, as far as like buying groceries, which I'll get into in another video. You know, there's grocery tips, places to get parts. Then there's the huge RV show, which is one of the main reasons that people will go there, especially in January. Which is just this crazy show where you can see all kinds of different rigs for sale, and then they'll have all kinds of equipment that you can buy and food booths and things like that. It's kind of like a fair, like an RVer's fair. So I'll get into that stuff, the stuff you do in town, in another video. But I just wanted to cover like the basics of the camping that you do and how you camp out there. I hope that helps some of you guys that are new to the nomadic lifestyle, or at least new to going to Quartzsite. It's a really popular place. And like I was saying, if you're new to Quartzsite, but especially if you're new to living in a vehicle, then you should definitely go to Quartzsite. Look at Bob Wells' channel, Cheap RV Living, because he puts on a couple events. He's part of a couple events there that are designed for new nomads that might also be really helpful to you. Man, I just dig this. I want to go hiking right now and not record, because I've been doing a lot of talking. And out here, I'm the only voice, and so I'm kind of sick of my own voice. I hope you're not sick of my voice. I hope you guys hit that like button. Let us know you're watching. We like to know you're watching. And subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed and turn on the notification bell so you get notified of all our videos. We have a lot of adventures, and we've had some cool ones coming this distance. You can go back and you can watch all those. And I'm sure we'll have some great adventures to come. Good boy. Okay, come on, go. Oh, I'm hungry. Pizza. I got leftover pizza. Leftovers. I don't call them leftovers, I call them the best overs.